Welcome back everybody, my name is Nick930 and today I wanted to give you guys 5 helpful tips and tricks for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. For this guide, we're going to be looking at tips to improve your combat effectiveness. Number 1. Using cover. Your success in a combat situation will rely heavily on smart use of cover in the game world. First things first, use the third-person camera when possible. PUBG lets you switch between both first and third-person viewpoints, which is a convenient feature for players that have a personal preference. But playing in first person will put you at a massive disadvantage. Take this situation for example. In first person, all this player can see is the rocky hilltop and the top of the rooftops down below. This player thinks that the action is happening in a building on the far side of the lot and has no idea that there's movement behind the house to his right. In third person, it's very clear where these players are and where they are hiding after the combat has started, which is key to being situationally aware and more effective. When engaging an enemy, keep your body hidden behind cover whenever you're not firing your weapon. Never stand out from cover holding an angle. It has absolutely no benefit to you. The enemy will be watching you from the safety of cover and will be able to line up a shot to take you out quickly when he's ready to fire. Now when you're ready to engage, quickly pop out and try to land as many shots as possible before he can react. If the enemy manages to get to cover, stop peeking and go back behind your own cover. You now have the option to peek from that same position again, or reposition, which will give you a huge advantage if it doesn't make it more difficult to get a line on your enemy. Next, let's talk about when to use automatic or semi-automatic rates of fire on your weapons. This can make or break your game, so it's important to prepare ahead of time for both styles of engagement. I like to keep a full auto weapon for close range and a secondary that's capable of long range combat with semi-automatic fire. When engaging at longer distances, especially past 50 meters, set your weapon to semi-automatic and try to stay still when firing. Don't strafe back and forth while firing or you'll mess up your accuracy significantly. Now when you're in close proximity to your enemy, then you're likely going to need to use full auto on your SMG or assault rifle. When using full auto, make sure you are ready for the recoil based on the attachments you found throughout the match. If you have a fully modified weapon with foregrips and compensators, then you likely will have an easier time controlling full auto recoil when aiming down the sights of your weapon. Otherwise, your weapon is going to be really difficult to maintain, and you're going to want to use short bursts to keep your weapon on target. If the enemy is really close, I recommend that instead of aiming down your sights, hold down the right mouse button and aim in third person. This will offer a good level of control and will make it easier to track your target while fighting in close proximity. I recommend using this method of aiming when you're within 10 meters of your enemy, especially in early engagements at the start of the match or towards the end in urban environments. Number 3. Rules of engagement. Seeing another group of enemies can be really exciting, but firing at anything that moves could be the reason you're not getting as many chicken dinners as you'd want. You're going to need to pick and choose your battles based on a few important factors. Now if you're still outside of the zone, then you absolutely should not engage another group of enemies. Firefights are often long, and even if you did manage to successfully kill or down your target, now everybody inside the circle knows where you fired from and will be adjusting their position to prepare to kill you. Not only that, but the loot from the enemy you just killed will often be unobtainable. You're better off remaining undetected for as long as possible and letting other groups of players fight it out. Listen carefully to where battles are taking place so that you can plan for what's going to happen. Also, keep an eye on the kill feed to determine what weapons are being used nearby. It may help adjust your own strategy. When you're down to the last 10 or so players, all bets are usually off, and you're likely going to be between multiple groups of players all fighting each other. Keep your head down and only engage a group if you know it's impossible for another group to flank you. Which leads me to my next point, number 4, positioning. Positioning is key to winning all engagements in this game. The fun of PUBG comes from the variety in the environment and how every little bit of cover and elevation can drastically affect the match. When moving into the white circle zone, you should always be mindful of where the high ground is and where the most tree cover and rock cover is located. If you're in an urban environment, you need to hug building walls and reduce your visual noise in the environment to prevent campers from seeing you. Always skirt the edge of the circle to prevent enemies from flanking you. If you're playing with a squad, try splitting up your squad towards the end so that you can cover more ground and surround the enemies. And most importantly, move towards positions with good cover. High positions on top of hills with large rocks are the best because it will force players to walk past you and straight into your scopes. Using the suggestions I had earlier about cover will allow you to easily hold strategic positions and keep enemies from overrunning you. And number 5, stay mobile. This is a tip that I often forget, and it almost always ends up killing me when I do. It can seem tempting to camp out inside of a house near the zone or even in the center of the zone, but this might be the most dangerous thing you could do. When you sit still, you're suddenly limiting your point of view to just a few windows or sight lines. There's multiple groups of enemies coming from all kinds of different angles, so at best, you'll be able to identify 25 to 50% of the enemies coming your way, and even then, you likely won't be able to engage any of them from your corner. If you keep mobile and focusing on gaining strategic positions with good cover, you'll always have the advantage over a player that's camping in a closet. As soon as the circle moves to another point outside of that camper's spot, that camper suddenly must move out into the open and will not be ready for another, more strategic player inside the circle. If the circle closes in on a field with tall grass, you'll need to keep moving prone through the grass while also keeping an eye out for good cover in case something goes wrong. Now, when you're actually in a firefight, nothing scares a defender more than a team of players that moves consistently. As soon as you duck down behind a wall and sit there, you've just made the enemy's job a lot easier. Keep moving from cover to cover and suppressing the enemy whenever you can until you finally have a good flanking position to take them out. Use grenades, including smokes and flashbangs if you have them as well. If you follow these basic rules, you should be much more effective in combat, and it should help you and your team obtain much better results, and hopefully more chicken dinners. I hope this video was helpful, and I plan on making more like this. Be sure to leave a comment below on what you want to see next, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more PUBG tricks and tips.